Okay, hello Cloud Gurus, and welcome to this lecture. This lecture is on the history of Amazon Web Services so far. So before we begin, you're never going to go into an exam and be asked what year was EC2 created or what year was S3 created. This lesson is actually just to give you sort of context of where AWS is and where it's going and why it's so important to learn AWS. So why is AWS so powerful? Well, this is Andy Jassy, and Andy Jassy is the CEO of Amazon Web Services, and he said famously that invention requires two things. One, the ability to try a lot of experiments, and two, not having to live with the collateral damage of failed experiments. Now, I'll give you a perfect example. We at A Cloud Guru are a startup. We did everything serverlessly, and we literally had no budget to build our platform. We had almost no money in the bank whatsoever. And we were able to go and use AWS and build a platform that scales automatically with demand for little to no running costs. And that's the beauty of serverless. And we'll get into what serverless means throughout the rest of this course. But it also, going back before serverless, but with the invention of Amazon Web Services itself, it meant that startups could go and try out new ideas. And then if it didn't work or they provisioned the wrong resources, you could just go in and terminate it. You didn't have to live with the failed damage or the damage of failed experiments. So before AWS and before the cloud, what used to happen is you would go and you'd get a server and you get it from a provider like Rackspace, for example, and you'd be locked into 3 to 5 year contracts. So if you made a mistake, that was it. You were stuck in a 3-year or 5-year contract and you couldn't necessarily get out of it. And also renting servers is actually quite expensive, and even purchasing servers for a startup, if you're purchasing, let's say, 2 web servers, 2 database servers, a switch, some firewalls, and a load balancer, you're probably going to be looking at about $20,000 just to get the equipment. And that can be an awful lot of money for startups. Now, when AWS came along, they started provisioning virtual machines, and you could go in and provision them instantly. You could do it at the click of a button. And you could just run that virtual machine for a couple of minutes and then terminate it, and you would only be billed for that hour in which it ran. So it meant that you could go in and start experimenting and doing lots of different things, and you didn't have to live with the collateral damage of failed experiments. So that is why AWS is so powerful. So let's go on to a brief bit of history about AWS. And in 2003, Chris Pinkman and Benjamin Black presented a paper on what Amazon's own internal infrastructure should look like. And they suggested selling it as a service and prepared a business case. And then AWS first launched SQS, and we'll cover off what that is later on in the course. But SQS was the very first service, and this basically is a queue service or a message service and allows you to decouple your infrastructure. And that was launched in 2004. Then AWS as a business officially launched in 2006, and they were really, really clever with the way they launched because they basically targeted a lot of Silicon Valley startups. And by 2007, over 180,000 developers were on the platform. So they went after the developers first. They weren't going after the enterprise markets. They went straight for the developers. And all these startups like Dropbox or Airbnb, etc., started on AWS. And because they didn't have to raise huge amounts of money in order to, buy physical servers, they could just use Amazon servers. It made them the massive titans of business that they are today. And by 2010, all of Amazon.com moved over to Amazon Web Services. And by 2012, Amazon had their first reInvent conference. Now, reInvent is held in Las Vegas every year. It's typically just after Thanksgiving. It certainly has been for the last few years. We are there every year. Last year we had a stand. This year we'll probably have a stand as well. And there's also a big party at the end of reInvent called Replay, which is great. It's like the biggest tech party on planet. And at reInvent, what Amazon do is they go out and they release all their big releases for the year. So they'll release all the new services. So that's what reInvent is. In 2013, Amazon released the certifications. So you could start getting certified as a solutions architect, as a developer, as a SysOps administrator, etc. And they started with the associate levels, then they brought out the professional levels, and now they've brought out the specialty levels. And as of recording to date, there are currently 10 certificates that you can get. And by 2014, AWS was committed to achieve 100% renewable energy usage for its global footprint. So Amazon's data centers are mostly powered by renewable energy, or at least they're trying to get that way. I don't know if it's at 100%. Don't know if they hit that target, but they're certainly trying. And by 2015, AWS broke out its revenue, and they were making $6 billion per annum, and it was growing close to 90% year on year. Now that growth has slowed a little bit. I think last time I checked it was about 44%, but that might have been for the last quarter. But it is growing super fast. By 2016, they had a run rate of $13 billion, and by 2017, reInvent released a host of artificially intelligent services. So these were services like Polly and Lex, and these are the things that power Alexa. They released SageMaker, which is a type of machine learning, and they released a whole bunch of different AI services. And their run rate was hitting $27 billion for 2017. In 2018, AWS launched machine learning certificates, and they had a heavy focus on automating and AI and ML. So that was all at reInvent in 2018. And then this year, just at the very beginning of the year, they've released the Alexa Specialty Cert. So you can now get Alexa certified as well. And there's a total of 10 certs available right now. So that's the history of AWS so far. We're still waiting on the 2018 run rate numbers, but I would expect them to be much bigger than last year. And it really is a great thing to learn. Amazon Web Services is going to be around for decades, and the demand is just going to keep growing as more and more businesses move their infrastructure to the cloud. And of course, more and more businesses will want AWS certified people. So by doing this course, you're going to get your AWS certification, and you're going to learn an awful lot, and hopefully have an awful lot of fun. So that's it for this lecture, guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.